Hi everyone, and welcome once again to the Songbird Sade Knits podcast. My name is Mercedes and I'm coming to you from Guelph, Ontario, also the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. And I'm sitting in my backyard. There's a lot of wildlife activity out in our backyard. Lots of birds. We have a cottontail rabbit that lives here as well, and she is in the backyard somewhere, so if I'm just sort of sitting in one spot, I won't bother her. We also live next to a train, so I may have to stop and start this video a few times depending on what the train activity is like. Okay. So yes, welcome to returning viewers, welcome to new viewers. I'm very happy to have you here and happy for your comments, and yeah, just happy for the knitting and crafting community that we have here. I haven't been recording lately, and I don't expect to record much after this for a while because I'm expecting my first baby June 29th, so that is in a few short weeks. But since the last video, I have certainly knitted a lot. I kind of broke my rule about not buying yarn for a while, and have acquired some beautiful yarns, so I'll show those to you as well. And yeah, let's just get started because this might be a long episode with all of the things that I have to share. Before I get into the knitting, you can find me on Instagram, where I'm sort of active depending on my mood, I guess, as Songbird Sade, and I'm also on Ravelry as Songbird Sade Knits. And yeah, I do try to post to Ravelry as much as possible. Lately I've sort of forgotten to post when I start a project, and then by the time I'm finished I sometimes don't have the energy to post, but I will do my best to keep that updated. So, it's a beautiful June day in southern Ontario, southwestern Ontario, and we just had a very heavy rainstorm the last day and a half, which was desperately needed. So the plants are looking very healthy. We've had a lot of sun lately, and then the combination of the rain has really helped the garden to be very healthy. So that's nice, and it's kind of it's just a nice temperature. It's, you know, the highs for the next week are in the low 20s, and the lows are around 10 degrees. So it's not a typical scorching hot June like we often get, not yet anyway. So I'm able to sit outside in the shade and be quite comfortable, although I'm not wearing any knits today. It's a little too hot for that. So maybe I will start with showing you I think I'm going to start with works in progress first. Yeah. So one really lovely thing that I'm working on is a summer top that I will be able to wear once I've given birth. It will not fit until then. Most of my knits that I've made recently don't fit at the moment. So I just have to go by what my measurements were before, and I usually knit a little larger than what my actual measurements are, just because I like a little bit of positive ease, and I usually choose patterns that have positive ease. So I'm currently working on a beautiful linen tank top, and this is a design by Pam Allen, and it is called Azalea. I don't know if it's I think it might be an older design. So just try to show you a little bit of that lace. Where does it stand out most? It's hard to tell here. Maybe against the sky? Yeah. So this is, it's knit flat, and I've read that, I've never knit with linen before. So I did some research, and it is suggested that you don't knit linen, pure linen, in the round, as it will naturally skew. And I don't know if that's just the fibers or the way that it's spun. But anyway, there are lots of beautiful patterns out there that are written for linen in the round, which I just avoided. So I found this one. It's written for flat, and so this is one side, and it just has a lace detail at the bottom. So I probably have a few more repeats of this to do, and then I'll just be knitting in stockinette stitch until the bust, and then we'll be shaping, of course, and then I'll start again on the other side. And it does look a bit large, you know, for one side, for my size, which is about a 36-inch bust typically. However, the way that the bottom hem is shaped on this garment is not through decreases, but instead through needle changes. So you start with a larger needle and just get progressively smaller and smaller until you get to the overall gauge size needle that you're going to be knitting with. So I haven't reached that smallest needle size yet. I think I have 2 more needle changes to go. And then I will be on the stockinette part, which will be nice. It's not an easy lace, but it's not complicated either. So if you've knit lace before, it should be fine for you. I wouldn't say it's a beginner lace though. I find the challenge with lace, even though I've knit it before, is always, if I make a mistake, figuring out where that is and how to fix it, because sometimes if you've dropped a stitch, it's really difficult to pick it up in the right spot and to integrate that into the lace pattern. So sometimes you have to just unknit row after row until you get to a place where there are no mistakes, and then you just start again. So but that has only happened to me once with this, luckily. And I'm knitting this in Rerum Natura's pure linen yarn called Antigone, and I think this is a DK weight, and the colorway is called Pampelmouse, which means grapefruit, and it really is just a pink grapefruit color. It's beautiful. I hope that you can see. It's maybe looking a little more rose colored on screen, but it really is a fresh pink grapefruit color. So that'll be a lovely thing to have. I'm in no rush to finish it. One thing I will mention is people often say that linen is hard on the hands when you're knitting with it. And I don't know whether it's this linen in particular or the time of year, but I'm finding that it's actually really pleasant to knit with. As a gardener who usually doesn't wear gloves, my hands get really, really rough in the summertime, and not necessarily dry, just really rough and scratchy. And knitting with the linen has been a pleasurable experience because it doesn't get caught on all of my dry, or all of my, you know, spiky skin, whereas wool has a tendency to, all the little fibers that stick out really get caught on your skin, which can be quite unpleasant. So this linen is feeling rather smooth, and I'm really enjoying knitting with it. So in that sense, not only is linen a good fabric for summer wear, it's also potentially you may find a good fabric to knit with in the summertime as well, if you are also a gardener. So that's one thing that I'm working on. I'm also I've been working on a blanket for, probably at least a year now. I don't really know. This is on my Ravelry, so I should have posted when I started it. It's the log cabin blanket, designed by Stacy Perry of Very Pink Knits. It's a free pattern, and I just I've had a lot of leftover worsted weight yarn from various projects that had accumulated. So I'd already sort of picked the colors for this. I'm not really adding colors as I go along, with one exception basically. So this is a really nice project to work on if I'm tired or if I'm camping with friends and family, for example. It doesn't require much thinking. I don't need to bring an iPad or a pattern or anything like that. I can just bring my knitting, and it's very relaxing. So I'm just going to show you all the squares that I've knit so far, starting with the most recent one. So I'm using a lot of Briggs & Little because I knit with that a lot. I have a lot of leftovers. And I'm also using Topsy Farms, a little bit of Cascade Eco, and a little bit of Lettlopi as well. They're not all exactly the same gauge, but overall the squares are the same size, and once I block them, they will effectively be exactly the same size, so it doesn't really matter too much. I'm not too worried about that. Lettlopi is probably the thinnest yarn, but it can be knit at a lot of different gauges quite successfully, so I'm not having trouble with that. So I have some squares that have a little bit of extra color in them, so some that have pink and some that have green and blue, and then I have a couple squares that are just, you know, a lot of neutral tones with that pop of burgundy. And I'm just continuing with that theme because I would like the blanket overall to look cohesive. I don't want it to look planned by any means, but I do want it to look that it all goes together. I don't want you know, one square to have a bunch of different colors in it that don't really appear elsewhere in the blanket. So that's the level of planning I'm doing with this. It's not a lot of planning. And I finished a square just yesterday, started and finished a square just yesterday, and I started this other one. So this is a new color that I'm introducing. I have two squares with pink in them, and I've run out of the pink, so I thought I would have two squares with this olive green in it that sort of stands out a little bit more. Not quite as much as the pink, but a little bit. So I figure it will this overall square will have the same character as the pink, with sort of a pop of color in and amongst the grays and the brown. So yeah, no rush to finish that. It's just a really nice project to have on the go, and honestly I could just have one of these blankets on the go all the time to just to reach for when I'm in between projects, or waiting for needles, or Not really sure what I want to do, but just need to do something with my hands. This is a really good project for that. And then I was thinking that when all the squares are done, I don't know what the pattern calls for, but I think you, maybe you could sew them together, but you might also add, you know, a border around each square that is also the border around the whole blanket. And I don't know how to do that in knitting. In crochet, I would know how to do that. So if it's not in the pattern in knitting, I'll have to figure out how to do that, because I don't want to use crochet on this project. But I would like a border, and I would like a color that sort of links all the squares together. My preference would be for something more neutral. However, I have a lot of the light green color available. And the reason I have a lot of that left is that I have this vest or t-shirt. This is the Nuke pattern. I can't remember the designer's name, but it appeared in Lina magazine. And it's a nice pattern. It's very boxy though. And I think the boxiness would work with a yarn that has a lot of drape. But I chose a yarn that has almost no drape at all. It's just a very hard wearing, thick, like thicker than typical worsted weight, pure wool, Canadian wool. It's a beautiful yarn from Topsy Farms, but it was not the right choice for this project. And I think the green perhaps doesn't suit me as well either. So I've actually changed this garment a couple times. I knit it as a crop top originally, and that wasn't working. So then I unknit that and just knit it straight according to the pattern. And I almost never wear this, and I don't really like to wear it. I just kind of have to force myself to wear it. So I think I will take this apart and use it to provide a border for the blanket. And then if this isn't enough, I do still have a little bit more from another leftover. I have leftovers from another project that I could use as well. So that, if you're interested in that color, which is a lovely color, it's the light green heather from Topsy Farms. All right, any other works in progress? Yes. I still have quite a few other works in progress that I'm not going to show you because I really haven't picked them up since the middle of the winter. So, and I don't really intend on working on them soon, maybe later in the summer. So if I do that, you'll see them then. Now this is a project, it's a work in progress. Doesn't fit while I'm pregnant, of course. I really haven't touched it in a while. I kind of lost the interest in it, unfortunately, but it is almost done. So, you know, when I'm feeling like it one day, I'll probably just put a lot of effort towards it, and then it should be finished within a week. So this is the Weekender Light by Andrea Mowry. And I believe I've made a lot of progress since I last showed you this. So it is a drop shoulder boxy design. I'm showing you the back. This is the front with a split hem that's a bit longer at the back. And then I've started on one sleeve. And I'm actually almost done this sleeve. I don't know. I just couldn't finish it for some reason. So I'm almost done the sleeve. And the yarn that I'm using is a 2-ply alpaca, bamboo, and merino. I always mix this up. I don't know why I can't remember this blend. Yeah, 65% alpaca, 25% Merino and 10% bamboo. It's a 2-ply, so kind of a DK weight, from Twin Pines Alpaca, which is an Ontario farm and mill. And the color is kind of a licorice brown with a beigey twist to it, like a cream twist. It's really nice. Kind of a marled effect. And I just thought that was good for this weekender sweater because it's kind of a plain sweater, but also one that you want to go with everything. So even though I don't love always the marled look, it does have the advantage of matching a lot of different things. So that's what I've chosen for that. And I just, I think part of the reason why I lost the energy to finish this, in part because it doesn't fit yet. I can get it on and everything, it's not flattering, it's not something that I'll be wearing yet. So that certainly is part of it. And we're in the summertime now as well. So even in a month or so, I won't be wearing it. The other reason is unblocked and not on the body, it does have a funny shape. It doesn't have a shape that you would see, in your closet and think, that's a really lovely sweater. It kind of, particularly the seam where you join the sleeve, is kind of messy. And of course that is partially my fault. But also the stitch changes. So here it's reverse stockinette, so all purl bumps. Here it's regular stockinette, so you just see the knit side. And there's something about that change. It's hard to pick up the stitches properly, and then the change kind of looks just a little sloppy. So I'm not in love with that. I will say when I'm wearing it, you don't even notice it, but when it's in your hands and you're knitting it, it's not a pleasant sort of, it doesn't provide the positive feedback that sometimes you need to finish a garment. So I actually have tried this on more than I would normally try on a piece that I'm working on, just to give myself that positive feedback. So yeah, and I may end up, I hate to say it, but I may end up, if the other sleeve turns out much nicer, because I've practiced already this picking up the stitches on the purl side, then I may end up frogging this sleeve and doing it again. So it's undetermined when this will be finished. But in any case, the yarn choice was perfect for this project. It has lots of drape, and it's very, very soft. Alpaca is heavy, so even though it's a light sweater, it's not really, it's not light in the sense that it's a summertime sweater at all. It's just light in the sense that it's thinner, and it would make a great piece in the wintertime under a parka, like underneath a coat that is very warm, and you don't need a huge bulky sweater to protect you from the cold. Okay, so that's that. That might be all the works in progress that I have to share at the moment. So I will move on to finished objects. Just going to readjust here. Every year it used to be the last week in May, and now it's the first weekend in June. There's a potter's market in Guelph, and I always attend because I love pottery and ceramics, and yeah, it's just, my birthday is also in June, so it's a sort of a time where I can treat myself if I want to, which I almost always do. And so we just had the potter's market last weekend, and I got this gorgeous tumbler. This sort of rich blue, deep blue color, and then a creamy white frothy color, and this brick red color on black clay from a potter named Monique Mulder, I believe. She might have a hyphenated last name, but Monique Mulder was what was written on, I think, her stand. And she's in Ontario, so if you're interested in looking her up, you can. I just love the colors. Okay, finished things. So I wanted to do some natural dyeing with onion skins, but I didn't want to figure out the mordant just quite yet. I'll probably use alum because it's the least toxic of mordants, unless you're using rhubarb leaves or something like that. But I need to let my rhubarb, I'll show you the rhubarb later, but I need to let it grow this year and not cut it, because I cut it last year, which was its first year in the ground, and you're really not supposed to do that with rhubarb. So I just want to leave it be and let it get strong. So I won't be using rhubarb as mordant this year unless I find, you know, wild rhubarb somewhere. So I will have to try something else. But in the meantime, I just dyed with henna, which doesn't require a mordant. And I found this swaddle, this cotton muslin swaddle at a thrift store, and it was pink, and I didn't want it to be pink, so I dyed it with henna, and it's now turned kind of almost a dusty heathered taupe color. It's I don't really know what to call it. You can definitely, it has a pink tone or a purple tone, but it's much more natural than it looked before. So I'm happier with that color, more gender neutral. Yeah, happy with the way that turned out. Definitely some pooling, some color pooling. You can see little spots there. It's already dry, so I feel that that won't come out. It'll just be kind of a stain. But honestly, it's a baby swaddle. It's going to get stained anyway. So that's fine, I guess. And the reason why there was color pooling, I think mainly what happened is probably that I just didn't let it hang to dry properly. The water did rinse clear, but then I was in a bit of a rush and it was quite late at night, so I just hung it over the shower faucet. And you know, you have to be careful when you're drying hand-dyed things, because whatever residual color is still left in there will absolutely show up as the water you know, follows gravity and comes down. That will happen when you're hanging your things to dry. So you want to have it as flat as possible, so that the water sort of equally comes out everywhere, and then you won't really notice if there's color pooling happening during the drying process. I'm kind of a sloppy dyer. I like the concept, and I love I do love the process, but sometimes I'm just a little too, I take it too quickly and I rush it. And yeah, I'm wondering if maybe on my maternity leave, my parental leave, I'll do some more dyeing and you know, approach it with a little bit more care from start to finish. Okay, finished knitwear. Well, going back a bit further, I had shown you in the last episode the sweater that I was making for my partner, and I set a deadline of 2 weeks to finish it, and I did in fact finish it exactly on time for his return from Germany. And I gave it to him basically the day after he returned, and it was blocked and everything, so I felt really good about that. And it's the Humulus sweater by Isabel Kramer, which means hops. Humulus means hops. So there's this finished sweater. Beautiful pattern, almost like a filigree hops motif. And I knit this in Lettlopi. Lettlopi, I can never remember their color names because they have so many colors, but this is just like a medium gray, and then this is a dark foresty green color. And with this pattern, this color work in particular, you do need to be careful to choose. I mean, this is pretty low contrast, which I like, but I originally chose 2 colors that were even lower contrast, and you couldn't even see the pattern. It was just a mess, because it really is very fine color work, and you know, lots of these lines are actually created with just 1 or 2 stitches. So you do need to pick something that has at least enough contrast to make the design visible. And I think this is just about right for me. Any lower contrast and you wouldn't be able to see it. So yeah. And I just added in Isabel Kramer's photos for this. She has one of the sleeves with this little stripe. There's a robin in the bird bath. Let's see if you can see it. That was a quick bath, I guess. Sometimes they really bathe for a long time. Yes, she had this little stripe, and I just liked that. It's, you know, otherwise a plain body. I just like picking up the color down here. It's fun. And yeah, so I knit that for my partner. It fits really well. It's many of Isabel Kramer's designs are just basically unisex design. You don't really have to do anything to make them work for everyone. Bit of a shy robin. So yeah, he loves that. He loves this sweater, wears it all the time. So I'm really, really happy with that. Then, I don't know if I showed this to you in the last episode or not, but I have posted it a couple times on Instagram. And it's just a sweet little baby blanket that I made. Chevron. This is a free, the pattern, the actual striping pattern is just my own design. However, the cast on number and the way that the chevron is achieved, you can kind of do that in different ways. you know, there could be Lacey chevron, and this is not Lacey. There's just different ways of doing that. This I got that sort of recipe from Espace Tricot. They have a striped chevron baby blanket recipe. I think they have a couple actually. So I just picked one and chose my own design, my own striping design, and I used Topsy Farms wool for this in worsted weight, and I used equal amounts of each color, except the yellow I used for the border, so that's not equal, but in terms of the stripes, it was exactly equal, because the idea was that I would use all the yarn. And so if it were equal, I could gauge when I was running out. However, this is quite a small baby blanket. It's just wait. It's a good size for a baby. But if I were to make it any longer, it would look strange. It would be too long and rectangular. So I just knit as much as it looked correct to knit. And then I had leftovers, which are going into a different blanket. So the colors that I used are their light blue heather, forest green, light heathered green, whoops, forest green's up here. Maybe you can't see that on camera actually, let's see. That's maybe a bit better. There's a forest green up here and an olive green here. And then this is the yellow. I can't remember what this is called. They have two yellows. One is more of a golden color, like a sunflower yellow, and this is a brighter yellow. So I went for the bright yellow because I just wanted it to pop. I'm just gonna see if I can, it's a heathered forest green there. And then down here is an olive green, so you can really see the difference there. And then I just did a single crochet border. I did 2 rounds of a single crochet border. So that was a fun project too, very easy to work on and easy to take camping as well. So yeah, that pattern would be great on a larger Afghan. You could just double the cast on number, and that would probably create a good width for a more standard sized Afghan, you know, to go at the foot of a bed. If you wanted to create a blanket, you could even triple or quadruple the cast on number, or you could you know, knit basically 2 Afghans and then sew them together. All different ways to approach that. Another finished object is one of these wonderful little crop tops. I think it's called the Summer Secret top, by Jessie May. Jessie made designs on Ravelry. Made is M-A-E-D, because her last name's May. Anyway, I've made this before in a blue heathered color, and then I had the same yarn in different colors left over, and so I just blended them for this marled effect. And I knit it exactly the same as the other one that I have because it just fits really well. I think I knit the size medium, and I used 2 strands of Lettlopi Einband, held together. So Icelandic single spun held together, which creates possibly a DK weight because it's a lace weight, or it's sort of like a fingering weight actually. And yeah, definitely not the best yarn for summertime or for next to skin wear. It's very itchy, but I usually just wear like a cotton bralette underneath, and then I'm fine. It's it doesn't bother me sort of on my chest or my back, just in more sensitive areas. So I find it totally fine. But yeah, it is a bit warm. That doesn't really bother me very much, to be honest. As long as I'm not, like, don't have wool around my arms, the wool elsewhere on my body really doesn't bother me too much. It doesn't make me overheat. So I think I'll be fine with this. I was just saying that I love these tops. They're so easy to knit, quick to knit, and very easy to wear in the summertime. Great with a high-waisted skirt or pants. Yeah. So I'll probably be making more of those, maybe in a nice cotton yarn instead of this, so that I can wear it next to skin. And the final finished object that I'd like to show to you is a shawl that I had very high hopes for. I've had this pattern for years and always just admired the simplicity and casualness of it. So I was really excited to knit it. And then I kind of, as I was knitting it, I just found the pattern, I don't know, maybe to say inelegant is not very kind. It's very simple, which is great, but the way that the sort of pattern changes, I just found it, I don't know, kind of random or something. I don't know. And then I personally made a mistake in the cast off, which then makes the fit of it not great. And I probably knit it at too tight of a gauge as well. So overall, this was not as rewarding in the end as I had hoped. But it's still nice. This is called the Campside or Campfire, I think it's called Campfire Shawl. I think published by Pom magazine. I'm not sure about that part, but the designer's name is now coming to me. It's Alicia Plummer. Of course, all these things will be in the notes. And yeah, it is what it looks like. It is a simple eyelet triangular shawl. It starts off with the eyelets spaced further apart, right? So first of all, you have the garter tab up here, and then eyelets further apart. And then just as you go down the shawl, they get closer and closer together. And then you kind of have this almost grid-like pattern at the bottom. And then it's finished with a 2x2 ribbed border, and then a cast off. And I added the tassels. They're not in the pattern. Maybe I'll just put that on for you. Okay, so, well, first of all, you can see it's not a bad size. It is like, you know, my wingspan. But I feel for a shawl to be, in my view, a shawl should either be big enough to wrap around, you know, your back and tie, or a little smaller so that it is quite obviously a scarf. This is more like a scarf size. But what I wanted was a shawl. But I can't wrap this around and tie, it's too short. So it's definitely more of a large scarf. And yeah, it does look nice on. There's really, I'm just picky, I guess. It does look really nice, and I still, even though I found the way the pattern changed, the way that the sort of eyelet repetitions changed, I just didn't like that. It just kind of changes. It ends up looking really nice, like your eye is not picking up any strangeness there. So really, it doesn't matter. And I like the eyelet pattern. It has just that simple, casual nature. So yeah, overall the pattern is just fine and looks like what I expected it to look like, I guess. The main issues are with me as a knitter. I always knit, I know that I generally knit tighter than patterns require, and I don't do gauge swatches, especially for a shawl. But I should have just known to use larger needles for this. Maybe even just a 0.5 millimeter up would have been good enough. That would have made the shawl larger. And the other thing is, when I did the bind off, I did a regular standard bind off, and there's no stretch to it whatsoever. And I thought that was going to be good for some reason. I don't know why I thought that. But the effect that it's had is that the shawl itself is way more stretchy than the bind off. You can see that, right? And then, so when I go to put it on, even as a scarf, this wants to flip up, because when I put any tension on it, you know, it flips up. So when I wear it as a shawl, I kind of just have to be careful about that. I have to sort of adjust it a lot to make sure it's not flipping up at the back, which is frustrating. And I definitely would have corrected this before I put the tassels on, but I'd already done that. So I used up all my extra yarn putting the tassels on to try to give this project a little more interest, just because I felt that it was too small and maybe a little boring. So I put these tassels on, and now that I've done that, I don't have any yarn to fix the bind off, and putting tassels on is kind of labor intensive, so I don't really want to undo that process and then do it again, even if I had extra yarn for the bind off. So that's done. Overall, not my finest work and not my favorite shawl, but still quite functional, still beautiful, and good for summertime. So this yarn is a merino, 90% merino, 10% silk blend from, again, I think it's again Rerum Natura, which is a company that I really like. And possibly it's a DK, so whatever their DK weight is, that's what this is, whatever they call that. And the colorway, I don't know what the colorway is called. It's sort of on the tip of my tongue, but I don't want to say it and it be wrong, so I'll just put it in the notes. But it's definitely like a minty or sage green, and it's maybe not mint, yeah, more like a sage green. Beautiful color. I love this color. And it's a nice yarn too. I'll see how it wears. And yeah, merino wool is good, and silk is also good for the summer. This is a silk top that I'm wearing. Silk is one of those strange fabrics that feels cool when it's hot outside and feels warm when it's cold outside. And merino, I wouldn't describe it like that, but merino does help with temperature regulation. So you can have it around your neck when it's pretty warm out, and you won't get that panicky feeling of being overheated. So it's a really good fiber to use for summer knitwear, especially a shawl that you want to be warm in the evening if it's cool, but that you also feel comfortable carrying around with you during the day. That's it for finished knitwear today. I will show you just some of the gorgeous yarns that I've purchased recently, just to share and to sort of let you in on what I might be working on this summer, and yeah, what knitting things I'm dreaming of next. So just on the subject of shawls, you know, I never really used to wear shawls, and then I knit like 2 shawls, and one of them being the Hedge Witch shawl, and I love that shawl. It kind of got annoying at the end to knit because it was so big and so long, and I had the maximum needle size that I could find, and it was just, each stitch was so tight up against the next one. I had to sort of end it early because of that. But I loved knitting that shawl, and I love wearing that shawl, and I love shawls now. So I really want to knit another one. In addition to one that's already a work in progress, I wanted to knit something else in worsted weight and just kind of hefty and perfect for winter, but also perfect for a cool night around the campfire. So I purchased the pattern called Rose from Isabel Kramer, and it's a pretty basic looking shawl. It does have some striping and I think some textures in the striping, and it has 3 colors, but you could certainly do it in 2 colors because the third color is sort of an accent that goes just at the end on the ribbing border. So you don't have to, you don't have to have a contrasting color there. You could just use one of the 2 colors that you're knitting with. But I just looked at what I already had in my yarn pantry, and I had 1 skein of Briggs & Little Seafoam colorway, which is it's a dark blue, but it's sort of a dark denim blue, and it's heathered, so there's kind of a bit of an indigo purple hue to it, with denim blue, a bit of green in there, some gray. It has a lot of different colors going on in it, but overall it's sort of a dark denim blue, and I really like that color. I don't use blue very often in my knitting for myself, but this is a color that I think is kind of like a neutral blue, if that makes sense. A lot of people would look good in this, and I think it'll suit me just fine. So I picked up 2 more skeins of that, and that's going to be my main color. And I also picked up from my local yarn store again, Briggs & Little Rag colorway, which is a mix, 2-ply mix of sort of a natural white and then like a beige, and that's going to be my main accent color that I'll stripe with those. And then for the ribbing hem, I haven't decided positively yet, but I have this leftover Gilead from Rerum Natura, so it's a merino wool in this golden color, and I thought that could be a nice pop of color at the bottom of the shawl. I think all these colors look good together. This might be too strong for me. I may wish to go for something like a little bit more brown perhaps, or yeah, just not as much of a pop of color. But who knows, maybe once this is all, you knit the rest of the shawl first, so it'll be easy for me to tell if this is going to be you know, a contrast that I would like or not. And I'm sure I can find something else in my yarn trunk that will be suitable. So there's that. Very excited to start that. And then I also bought, at the same time that I bought the linen yarn for the azalea top, the store that I bought from, that's not quite local to me, but it's in Toronto, the Knitting Loft. My local yarn store is All Strung Out, and then the Knitting Loft I buy from a lot as well because they sell a lot of European yarns, and they had a sale on, so I bought a few summer yarns. So I bought Holst. I've never knit with Holst before. I've always been curious. This is not the super soft. This is it's called Tides, and it's a wool, 70% wool and 30% silk blend. So lovely that it has so much silk in it, and it has a tweed look, so kind of like little, you know, neps of silk, I guess, that are sort of white. And then the color that I got is called Orchid, which is a purple, just a nice purple color. So yeah, you know, for spring, I bought this in the early spring, so when it was still snowing outside, and yeah, I always want color at that time. And I think in the summer it really is just so joyful to put on a wonderful handmade knitted top with just a lovely, happy floral color. So I got that, and with it, this is, I should mention, this is a fingering weight. With it, I'm intending on making the Tegna by Caitlin Hunter. I have tried knitting it before, and I found it just so frustrating because you start with, you know, over 250 stitches cast on, and you're knitting in the round, and you're starting with the lace section, and so if you make a mistake, it's just really difficult to fix. However, I have a lot more experience since I started that, so maybe it won't be as irritating this time. But yeah, that's my intention for this. And I also bought 5 or so balls of this pure silk from Knitting for Olive in the colorway Olive. And this feels really nice. Silk is a funny feeling. It feels like a plant fiber, but softer. And with this, I can't remember the name of the top that I'm going to make. It's a summer top, kind of a drop shoulder tee, with, again, common theme, lace on the bottom, kind of a scalloped laced bottom, and it might also be a design from Pam Allen, or it might be by Pam Allen, I can't remember. It's, in any case, it's a beautiful design that was published by Quince & Co. a while ago. I've had this pattern for years, and yeah, gorgeous pattern. I will post the name of that, of course, and the designer's name in the notes. It could also be by Layla Raven. I can't remember, so sorry about that, but I do know that it was published by Quince & Co. So yeah, that's going to be lovely as well. And I guess the final, oh no, I'll show you a couple more yarns. Lots. This is only part of it as well, but it's already possibly too much. So anyway, this next yarn is really exciting. I have family in England, a brother-in-law. So his family is there. He's from England, and he often visits, or my sister and he will visit, and sometimes I take advantage of that and ask them to bring me English yarn back that is pretty challenging to find here. So honestly, I don't know where you'd find this next yarn. This is Frangipani Yarn, which is a company that makes yarn specifically for Gansey sweaters, so traditional Scottish fisherman sweaters. It's their website is guernseywool.co.uk. So Guernsey is Guernsey, also sometimes pronounced and spelled Gansey. And so this is actually a 5-ply like DK weight. And the thing about Canadian yarn, there's so much beautiful yarn in Canada, but it's often 2-ply, 1-ply, 2-ply, or 3-ply. And it's really, I don't know if it's just because of the mills or the market or the yarn, or the wool rather. I don't really understand where these traditions come from, but in England or in the UK, there's a lot of yarns that are thinner, like Shetland yarns, for example, that are at least 4-ply or more. So this is a true 5-ply yarn, and that gives it a really nice round structure, and that makes it great for textured stitches, which are what provide the design on Gansey fisherman sweaters. So I got 2 cones of this. This is also called Olive on their website, I believe. So it's an olive green, quite a rich olive green too. By comparison, this is olive drab, and this is like a really rich green olive. And I'm going to make a sweater for my partner out of that. And I have more of their yarn that I had brought back for me a couple years ago as well. I bought 2 cones of their Clover colorway, which is actually kind of similar to this color, like a bit of a dusty pink. And I haven't knit with it yet, but I will of course let you know how it goes when I do start one of those Gansey sweaters. And finally, as part of the sale that the Knitting Loft had, I guess being pregnant, I've decided I really wanted more cardigans in my wardrobe. They're just useful, so useful, and easy to wear. So I already had this pattern by Gudrun Johnston, the Pottery cardigan. It also comes in a pullover, but I have the cardigan design, and I had already chosen the colors for the yoke, and well, mostly anyway, but I decided to get a few more colors just to make sure that I had the right combination. So in any case, I ended up with these colors for the yoke. So I have a heathered mustard, quick interruption for beautiful bun. She's the bunny who lives here in our yard. She's very relaxed. We never approach her and we give her lots of space, and we try to be quiet when she's outside. And I think she knows that we are not dangerous, and she feels very at home here. So we've had a bunny in our yard every year that we've lived here, and oh, there she goes. Anyway, she's the most relaxed of all the bunnies that have lived here. She is in our yard every day, and sometimes will come very close to us when we're sitting outside, and she just does her own thing. So we're happy to have her. Anyway, these are the colors I got for the yoke. This is like a cinnamon rust heathered color. This is a mustard heathered color. This is I really wouldn't know how to describe this, almost like a purpley stone and rose heathered colorway. And then this is a rose, peachy salmony, actually, peachy salmony heathered colorway. These are all heathered from Jamieson and Smith. So that's going to be the yoke. And then I'll try to manage this here. And then I got 3 skeins of Solia from Hillesvåg. It's a fingering, I believe it's a fingering. Fingering wool. I wonder if it is their pelt yarn. I don't know. Pelsulgarn. I don't know if it is. I know their Tinda is the pelt wool. I don't know about the Solia. I'll have to look into that. But yeah, so it's black, and I'm gonna have a black cardigan with these in the yoke, which seems a bit I don't know, it might be a bit too striking. I've knit with black before. Definitely not my favorite color to knit with. However, it was really hard for me to pick a base color that would go with all these colors without it being gray, because I don't want a gray cardigan, and gray doesn't look that great on me. I didn't want it to be brown because I thought that would be too earthy. White I thought would just not work. I already have maybe some white things, or I'm also knitting a white pullover at the moment, so I didn't really want that to be white. So I went with black. So I don't know how that's going to look. It might look really interesting. It might make these colors pop a lot. It might look too stark, but I'm willing to just do it and live with the result. I think it'll be okay no matter what. So we'll see. So I'm now definitely uncomfortable sitting on the ground, and I'm out of things to show you for today. So that's all. Don't know when I'll post again. We'll just see how things go. And yeah, we'll just see how things go. Yeah, I'll be back for sure. And hopefully I'll have lots to show you at that time. In the meantime, I thank you again for joining me here, and I wish you a beautiful, beautiful summer or winter, whatever your season is, wherever you're watching from. And I hope that you are just trying to make the most out of your days, crafting, creating things, and enjoying being embodied and just in this beautiful, beautiful world. And yeah, however you do that, I hope that you are doing that and having fun. And of course, please feel free to leave comments, leave questions. I do get back to you if you have a question. And yeah, if you want to share some of your knitting experience as well, I'm sure we all appreciate reading about that. So thanks so much again, and maybe I'll see you on Instagram or Ravelry, and I'll be sure to see you in the next episode. Take good care. Bye. I haven't named this bunny. I usually do name our bunnies. I haven't named her, but I often refer to her as Beautiful Bun. She seems to suit a lot of different names, a lot of different plants. She often sleeps underneath my peonies, so if I were to give her a name, maybe it would be Peony, but sometimes I think she suits a different name, so she just goes by Beautiful Bun. And she is particularly beautiful.